like to start these things with a quote, and today I have everyone you will ever meet knows something you don't, Bill Nye. And to talk a little bit more about that today, we have Keel Russell, who is the CEO of BizLea. He's an innovative entrepreneur, dedicated advocate for community development. He's also a military veteran, husband and father of two, loves the outdoors and traveling. Keel, how are you today?
I'm doing well, doing well. Thank you for asking. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm fantastic. I'm very excited about this one because you're approaching things a little bit differently with BizLea. But before we get to that one, can you tell me, kind of share the journey? How did you start where you started, and how did we get to today with BizLea?
Interesting enough. So I served 12 years in the Army. I went straight into the Army right after high school. Back in 2008, when I was going into when I was finishing up my bachelor's, I decided to volunteer to get deployed overseas. I did a year and a half in the Middle East, and then when I got home, I decided to work for the federal government for about 2 years. And then I decided to do the crazy thing. I decided to become an entrepreneur and jump off the cliff. And I started my first venture, and I started making lingerie for plus size women. And after a year of doing that, I realized I didn't have enough to become the Victoria's Secret for plus size women. So I gave that up and pivoted and started manufacturing slippers, or actually, I started manufacturing color changing umbrellas, which I was able to eventually get into Walmart. And I did about almost 2 years of doing that. But something unique happened from that moment. I was actually going to trade shows promoting the color changing umbrellas, trying to get into other retail stores. And a lot of small businesses used to come up to us and ask us about who do we use for marketing, or who creates our marketing collateral. And I said, we do it all ourselves. And a lot of people say, you guys are really good at it. You guys should consider going into marketing. So about a year after doing that and hearing all these people saying, hey, we're good at marketing, I decided to go into marketing, and I created a marketing company. And that company's been around for about 10 years now. And through that process of building that marketing company, we were very intentional about going after large corporate contracts, government contracts. And within 2 years of starting that business, we won several federal contracts. We started winning some local city and county contracts. And then we started going to corporate contracts, and to date, we work with about 46 corporations. We have contracts with nine of them. We're registered in over 750 corporate portals and government portals, and as you can imagine, all of that data being registered in these different portals and managing certifications and managing relationships, we were tracking all of that in spreadsheets, and it was a nightmare. So something gave me the bright idea that there's got to be a better way of doing this, and I started asking around other small businesses of what they were doing, and everybody said they were tracking in spreadsheets like I was, and I was like, that's crazy. And I nothing was on the market, so I decided to start building a solution that would automate and streamline these vendor registration processes, government agency, finding the key buyers at these government agencies and corporations, and also managing my certification in one centralized portal. So that's why I created BizLea.
It's a fascinating journey. To
Yeah.
it's a fascinating journey because the military stuff wasn't the hardest part. Jumping into entrepreneurship, that was the harder part in this whole process.
Mhm.
It looks like you really wanted to do this entrepreneurial thing. It wasn't like stumbled upon it and that was it. You really started with, I would say, very, very difficult manufacturing. It's multiple pieces to the puzzle to get to the final product. Um, do you feel manufacturing has changed for the better or for the worse in the last, let's say, 4 to 5 years?
I mean, it's changed for the worse for the United States because most of the manufacturing is being done abroad. But that's been going on for about 20 years,
Mhm.
20 to 30 years now. So, um, but I think manufacturing as a whole, you are right. There's different components of it, but I think for me, I was destined for it because again, I started selling candy at the age in elementary school, and so I was being an entrepreneur back then. But when I decided to venture into entrepreneurship, I was in school pursuing a master's degree, and I told my professor I wanted to be my own boss. I didn't want to go work in corporate America. And he was like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Hey, I want to make lingerie." And he was like, "That's crazy." But I was like, "Hey, there's a gap in the market." So I saw an opportunity. Victoria's Secret made lingerie for small women. Lane Bryant actually store made lingerie for plus size women, but there was nothing for the curvaceous women, as I call them. So I decided he was like, you got to go to China. And so I actually, took 2 weeks out of school and I flew to China with no experience. And I went to several different factories, and I was really inspired by being in China because I met this young lady. I was 25 at the time, and she was 24, and she had 400 employees working for her. She had 5 buildings or 4 buildings that were she was renting, and she had 400 employees. And I was like, wow, like what am I doing in America? Like, and she was 24. She said she started when she was 16. And so I was able to go through these factories and see how the assembly line, see how they cut and sew things, and see how they produce products in China. And that's what inspired me to say, hey, I can create products, and I could create anything I needed to. So yeah.
It is um it is not an easy thing when you look back now and talk about that massive risk plus the cost that you had to kind of cover at that age to take that leap of faith. I'm going to take 2 weeks off. I'm going to go to a foreign country. I have nothing. I don't know anything about it. Plus, you're going to manufacturing. Plus, you're going through businesses. People will try to be like, oh, this guy's coming from the States, probably loaded. Let's see what
Yeah.
deals we can strike.
Right.
Did you see a difference in doing business when you go to a different country versus in the States?
I one, the cost of production is a lot cheaper. So if you are, and that's why most of our production and manufacturing has been outsourced abroad. So going to these different countries, you're able to one, I can only speak for the Asians, but in the Asian market, they respect you a lot more if you come to the country and come to their factories because they know that you're serious about business. Versus doing business via email or through some other means like WeChat or WhatsApp, they take you a lot more serious. But I would say that production and manufacturing, they have a lot more people and attention to detail is a lot different over there. Like they actually are really meticulous about putting things together. Not to say that Americans are not, but I think it's a different level of processes that they go through. But just like you said, I think you have to be very, very careful when you're going abroad, especially if you're doing it via internet and not in being in person. You can get scammed, or they will bait and switch you. They'll present you with a nice material, and then when you get the final product, it might be slightly a different, cheaper material. And it's really hard if you're not familiar with manufacturing. It might be pretty hard to catch it up
Mhm.
front. So you can really get like little scams like that.
And when you started this process, it feels like you kind of experienced both sides, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything, but kind of the whole thing. But you started to do this lingerie for plus size women, and you're learning a lot. And then you're going after what feels like more unique product, because this one is like maybe a
Yeah.
broader market. Then you're switching to the umbrellas. And how did that idea come about?
So when the laundry wasn't working out like I wanted it to, I was like the I call myself like the Rihanna before the Rihanna, before the Fenty and like her laundry line. But when that wasn't working out, I said, I need to pivot at what products I could sell into retail stores that would make me enough money so I could go back to the laundry idea. And I created a list of like 20 products, and umbrellas was on it. I was like, what industry have been like a dinosaur that hasn't been disruptive? And I created a list, and then umbrellas just stood out to me. I was like, the umbrella industry has been very dormant and just chilled over the past 20 years. So I started playing in that space. And then I started doing research. And then there's this one guy out of Europe. He created the inverse umbrella, the umbrella that folds upwards. So I reached out to him. I saw his video on YouTube and I reached out to him and I asked him, like, hey, I love your product. I'm in the umbrella business. I manufacture umbrellas abroad. I actually got my umbrellas in the Walmart. And I could love to be your US distributor. And he was like, nah, we don't want to go into Walmart. Also, we are working on a patent for the US market. And then 2 months, like 6 months later, his umbrella was seen on what's that, the shopping center, this shopping channel. A young lady stole his idea, and I was like, "See, if you had just partnered with me, I would have been your partner. We could have got into Walmart and all these other things." But that's kind of like what inspired me because I created that list trying to pivot from lingerie. The umbrellas stood out to me, so I decided to go into umbrella manufacturing umbrellas and trying to innovate with umbrellas. Came up with that concept of color changing umbrellas. But I learned through my research and trying to get it patented that the concept of color changing fabric had already existed. So I was taking the color changing fabric and putting it on an umbrella. And so it was nothing unique in the sense, but it was still unique at the time, but it wasn't unique in based on past patents, right? So that's what got me into umbrellas. And then from umbrellas, going to the trade shows, promoting umbrellas, trying to get into other retail stores, people kind of like inspired us to, hey, you guys should consider marketing. And we got into marketing and we've been doing marketing ever since. And that's how we came up with the idea. That's how I came up with the idea of starting BizLea because of all of those challenges that we dealt with the
Right.
marketing agency.
And when you look at the early days of entrepreneurship, because you have things that look like they come natural to you, like you were looking for a product that's disruptive, you were looking
Mhm.
for something that you can network and connect with people. I can connect with this guy and create this opportunity from Europe and US and brought it here. So you were already building these things that they were coming natural to you, and you discover the patent that you really can't patent because it exists in some shape or form. Did you take
Right.
some of those things and started applying them in a bigger scale when you created your marketing agency and now BizLea?
Yeah, I would say that I know myself. One thing I know about myself is that I'm a visionary. So I consider myself a visionary leader. So I think about like who I'm inspired by is like Wayne Izinga. Wayne Izinga, he's the founder of AutoNation, Waste Management, and there's one more, Blockbuster. You guys remember the whole Blockbuster,
Yeah.
stories? Yeah. So he was like the first guy in history to create multiple businesses that are Fortune 500 companies, and now you have Elon Musk. So like I wanted to be like those guys. So like I'm always thinking about ways how can I innovate and disrupt a market. So that's kind of like why I thought about BizLea. Like how can this procurement industry or process of becoming a vendor with large companies and government agencies, how can we simplify that while being disruptive? So that's kind of like along the lines of like how I think, and I try to think how can we simplify this process but while being disruptive.
In it sounds like in every process and in every endeavor that you look that you get inspired, like you said from Romania Zenga, you're looking not just to find a niche, you're looking to find a product that you can use it to be disruptive.
Correct. And scalable. Something that's repeatable and scalable. So unfortunately the marketing industry for me it's a really tough industry to be in. And we've survived 9 years, right? So but it's a really tough industry to be in because like how can you really be you try to think about ways how we can be disruptive. For us, we provide marketing service on a global scale, and that's the way because a lot of companies of our size do not play in the global scale, global markets. So for us, a lot of the corporations that we work with came to us because we have footprints around the world, and we've been doubling revenue every year for the past 4 years. Um, but that's again, that's another way of thinking about how can we be a little bit different from our competitors. And so we decided to say, hey, let's focus on global markets and being local to those regions that our clients have clients, their clients as well as their employees are. So yeah.
And it looks like the approach that you want to see that you feel like it will work the most in a rigid industry like the marketing space, going global as opposed to just kind of pigeonholing and narrowing down, but I'm going to go global. And then because I'm going to do all this work, there will be footprints and other people will start to notice, okay, that company actually works with a lot of global companies. So we can start
Yeah.
talking with them and
Hmm.
that impact, like you said, to local businesses that want to work with these vendors.
Correct, correct. And so along the lines of that, and then also I've done it myself, so I know all of the challenges and nuances that small businesses face in trying to get in the door with these global companies. So I said, how can I simplify that and make it easier so that they don't have to go through the same challenges I did? So that's our whole premise is like, how can our mission is to simplify procurement for small businesses, and so we're always thinking about how can we streamline this process and simplify it, and while position companies to be able to work with large corporate, large Fortune 500 companies, I would say Fortune 5,000 companies and government agencies to win contracts faster.
Okay. And when you're doing um, when you're doing these networking and these building relationships globally is it's not easy. I mean, local is not easy, yet alone on a global scale. What are some of the mistakes that you see people always do when they assume of proper relationship building and kind of these long-term business partnerships?
I think the number one killer of small businesses is not trying. Like, right? When I started reaching out to these major corporations, like, hey, we're a marketing agency. They're like, well, let's jump on a call. Like, we're actually looking to do more business with small businesses. And they ask you, like, how many employees do you have? We're like, well, it's three of us. It's three of us. And, to go from 3 to 11 and to go from zero accounts to bigger, 46, 49, 47 accounts is crazy. But no, the number one thing is not trying. If you don't try, you're not going to know what's possible, right? And it took one company to give us a chance. Like it took one pharmaceutical company to say, yes, we'll give you guys a shot. We're going to start you off small. Our first year with that pharmaceutical, we did $5,000 in revenue for the entire year. We had other small accounts that kept us afloat, but that one account was $5,000 for year one. Year two, we jumped up to 10,000. And year two, like 10,000 the entire year. So most people think like, oh, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna make $1 million because it's this large company. They gotta vet you. They gotta test you out. They gotta make sure that you have the capacity to deliver on the project. And then year three, something amazing happened. We jumped. They gave us a bigger shot. They gave us a bigger project, and we did 400,000 with them. Year four, we did 800,000, and then last year we did 1.5, 1.2 million. And then from there, all those other major accounts started following suit. Like, hey, we know you work with this company, we know you work with that company. And it's just a trickle effect. And then other company, now we have 46 of them that we work with. But I would say the number one thing is not trying. Number two mistake is thinking that you're gonna make $1 million in year one. Their relationships takes time. Just like when you start dating someone, in the first 6 months whether or not you wanna stay work in that relationship. But if you do go past the 6 months, okay, this potentially could lead to something bigger, could possibly lead to marriage, right? And that's for us. That's how it works. We dated for 2 years, and then in year three, they said, "Hey, we want to make it more serious, and then we're gonna give you this bigger project." And now year five, we say we're practically married right now, right? So,
Wow.
so that's how it works.
I like when I hear the reality of these things because I think there's a lot of people that will go on YouTube that will see it's easy to make 10,000 a month. It's easy to make your first million. And they kind of give you like these high level structures. Theoretically, math, it makes sense. But once you go out and you try to do those things, you're like, okay, it's not really like that. And then you get hit, pretty hard with some hard news. Now, you're talking about these long periods that wasn't really pretty. It was pretty bad. What are some of the things that you were doing like mentally to believe that this will work, to not give up?
I think year two kind of gave us a false positive expectation because year two, when we started the marketing agency, we won several federal contracts that same year. So we're like, hey, if we could do this on the federal side, we could probably do this on the corporate side. Got into corporate, it was like, wait, we have to make sure that you have the capacity to do our job. And first, you have to get in the door. It's a lot of people don't know how to get in the door. And even for us in the beginning, the first 4 years, it was trial and error. We were trying to figure out how do we get in the doors to these large companies faster? How do we get them to trust us faster? And then something amazing happened in year 5 where I figured out the secret sauce and I created a process that was more proactive versus reactive. I don't wait for bid opportunities to come out. I actually proactively reach out to the stakeholders at those companies and to try to win contracts faster. And usually that leads to some type of relationship building. I meet someone new or I get an introduction, and then that leads to new opportunities. But yeah, I would say that it's important, definitely important to, um, believe in yourself, keep trying. But I think for me, I think the number one thing is like you get excited when you start talking to a large company, even if they say no to you. Like it's something that if you get on a call with them and it could be the janitor for a large company, you'd be like, well, I just talked to the janitor at XYZ company. And he's the janitor for the entire building. It's exciting because like, hey, he goes to all the offices, so he knows all the people. Like maybe he could introduce me to XYZ. So it's that kind of excitement that keeps you going. But once you get your first win, from there, it's no turning back. It's the first one that matters.
Right. Yeah, and it's true because even when you're like, man, we have a call with Walmart. Did they show up? No, but we got a call with Walmart. So we'll see what we can rebook the next one. But at least they talked to us, they exchanged emails.
Right.
Because um it's this validation, this proof of concept that you've been working on it day in, day out. And that small victory, it's enough to validate it. And like you said, and I like the timeline that you're realistic, you're like for 2 years. Year 2 got false positive. Year 5, I figured it out. It's not overnight. It's a long process because you're building relationships, and it doesn't matter how big someone is. Then you might build a relationship with a specific person of a company. Then they switch.
Yeah,
They're
and they switch on you. Oh, that happened to us. That really happened to us. I mean, there's a young lady at Starbucks that we were working with, and she was amazing. She was trying to get us in the door and trying to get us more work, and then she left, and she went to another company and was like, oh, but I want to go back to the last point. The last point you mentioned, like when, there's that journey of 4 or 5 years. There's a saying, and I don't know if I have it correct, but there's a saying that, there's that meme that you're digging and digging for, diamonds, and you give up right before you hit the big diamond. And if you just kept digging a little bit more, you would have hit that big diamond. And a lot of people stop before they could reach that diamond. So they say if you can make it past, um, if you can make it past 3 years in business, you're most likely you have a better chance of surviving. But if you can make it past year 5, you have a great chance of surviving. And year 5 was like our aha moment where things just fell in line like it should, and we just started scaling from there. And I was just even this morning, I was looking at our finances and looking like, oh man, we've been doubling revenue every year. That's great. But then there's this period that everything was stagnant. Like, oh, it was like 3 or 4 years. It was like, oh, we were like at the same revenue marker every year, and it's like, then things just took off. So
if you it's important because we all kind of go through that process because like from 0 to 1 it's like that, and then year 2 probably a little bit, and then it's like stagnant, and then you hear all kinds of your business is growing until it stops growing, and then I'm like, well, it grows all the time, it goes up and down, but if you're sticking with it, it kind of works out. Someone told me the business is like what you said, like passing the year 5. Someone told me like the businesses don't kind of fail. It's the owner, the entrepreneur, his kind of his drive kind of fizzles out. How do you feel
yeah.
about
I do think there's periods like, there's periods as an entrepreneur. I mean, people talk about the roller coaster effect, right? So as an entrepreneur, you're going through this roller coaster journey. So I like to describe entrepreneurship not like a roller coaster. I like to describe it as like a theme park. So if you ever remember me for anything, remember this saying. But I like to describe entrepreneur as a theme park because I believe, like, as a kid, you're getting ready to go into the theme park. You're excited, and then you go on the massive roller coaster, and it takes you on a wild journey, and you like, I'm never going back on that ride ever again. And you're scared for your life, and you're terrified. You have those moments as an entrepreneur to go through these type of journeys. And you make mistakes. You go through these journeys and then be like, that was a mistake. I should never did. I won't do that again. But then you said, you know what? I want to take a little bit smaller, slower pace. Let me go on this merry-go-round and try that. And you go on that, you're like, well, this is great. It's stable. It's cool, but it's not fun. It's not exciting enough for me. So you want to try something else. The good thing about all those rides and those experiences, they all come to a stop. So, right. So even if you're going on a scary ride, and if things are not going as planned, that ride will come to a stop. You could get off and you could try something else. That's what entrepreneurship is. You're gonna go through these experiences and throughout the theme park, and you're gonna try different ones, and you're gonna see which one works. Whatever one works the best for you, and you love doing it, you're gonna continue that journey. You're gonna. So for me, I've had periods where I've been burnt out, but I was like, let me try this new ride, and let me try to innovate. Let me try something different, and that gets you excited again. So like when I do projects internationally, every project is different because you're shipping products all over around the world until something breaks. When customs in a country says, "Hey, we have to seize this product. You didn't submit all the right paperwork," and I'm like, oh, and then things go crazy. But you learn from that experience, and you will never make that same mistake again. So that's why I describe entrepreneurship like a theme park, not so much like a roller coaster, because these journeys and roller coasters will come to a stop, and you could try a different ride.
It's true the way that you explain it, like you said, remember me for this one thing. It's true because it's not like one roller coaster ride. It's different because it's very different when you switch. Some businesses are very stable, but they're not really exciting because it's the same. You're like, okay, I figured this one out, but it's not really rewarding. Then you try something big swings, like, okay, if I miss, like it's a problem. And then you have the one that you will find out. But even if you're on a scary one, like you explained it, like it does come to a stop. You can hop off. You don't need to like stick. Like if it's sinking,
Yeah,
like let it
yeah,
go. If it's sinking, let it go. Pivot or change or do something different. Now, when
yeah.
we when we're getting to learning all these opportunities, you're building in your kind of shaping the way that you will be in your company will kind of go forward in life. And now you have BizLea, which, like you said, you have over 700 vendors that people can connect. Um, how how does it work for someone to start as I have this, to figure out their manufacturing stuff, whatever they decided, whatever the product is. How does that work when they start going on BizLea and starting properly connecting with all these vendors, building these relationships so they can properly distribute across all of the vendors and it's sustainable? It's not like, because we don't want people to have the idea that you just click a button and it's like
Yeah.
Amazon and whatever Walmart is kind of marketplace.
So let me elaborate. So what BizLea is and what is not. So when I mentioned that we have 750 corporations that we're registered to, I was talking about my marketing agency. The marketing agency we're registered over 750 corporations and government agencies, and we do business with 49 of those 750. Now that gave us the inspiration that we needed to start BizLea. And
Mhm.
what BizLea is that it's a SaaS platform that allows business owners to streamline and automate their processes of trying to get in the door with large government agencies and corporations because there's a lot of red tape. Like as a business owner, I have to, if I want to register, if I want to become a vendor with Coca-Cola, I have to go on Coca-Cola's website and then fill out all of these different fields and forms to become a vendor with them. And that doesn't guarantee any real opportunity. But then take it a step further. Like what I'm once I register, what I'm asking myself is like, what do I do next? Like, what's the next step? Most people don't know what the next step is. For me, my process is that once I register as a vendor with Coca-Cola, I need to figure out who do I need to talk to at Coca-Cola that would likely buy my marketing services. So I will do some research, and that research takes up time as well. Just as another time guzzler that, if you don't have the resources to be able to do it, pay someone to do it for you, as an owner, you have to do it yourself. So in the beginning, I was doing this myself. I was registering as a vendor, then I have to find the buyer at Coca-Cola who buys my services. Then I have to try to find their contacts and try to get in contact with them. And a lot of times these guys are busy, so they're not going to respond to your email. They're not going to respond to your phone call, the first attempt. So you have to make a consistent effort of trying to get in touch with them. Once you get them on the phone, and then it's that you have your 30 seconds or your 1 minute to pitch them and make them believe what you're selling is worth jumping on a Zoom call for. So I would go through that process with them. Once I get someone on the phone, if they like me, they would jump on Zoom with me. And then once I get them on Zoom, that's my moment to shine. And that's when I pull out my pitch deck and I pitch the heck out of them. And I stay in touch with them. Even if there's no real opportunity immediately or immediate opportunity, I try to stay in touch with them in 3, 4, 5 months, possibly up to 2 years, before they give me a project or allow me to test me on a project. And then once I get a test project, then I get in the door. And now I'm an official vendor. So what BizLea is that we register as a vendor. We help you find the key contacts at those companies, and we're working on some new solutions to help you market yourself to those buyers at those companies. But we're not there yet. So again, we're only in year one, but we're building tools built on with AI, automation, and integrations to be able to streamline your registration processes, manage your certifications, and find the key buyers at these companies.
I like the pieces where you were mentioned, because I think there's a huge gap, because I've worked with some people that have this. I feel like small business owners have this idea that I register with Coca-Cola, they'll reach out to me now because I'm a registered vendor and I have
Nope.
something. And the way that you described is like, that's just like paperwork in essence. I need to submit some paperwork so that you
Right.
can talk to me. Kind of, you can't
Right.
talk to me if I didn't submit the paperwork. And now the chase starts. So
Right.
your approach is submit what you got to submit so they can be able to talk to you, basically. Otherwise they can't. So
Right.
then you're shooting for just like a elevator pitch of 30 seconds to a 1 minute to see if you like me, what I do, who I am as a person. And then
Right.
they might say, I like you. Let's keep this going. And that conversation goes a couple of months. And then
Right.
eventually you have the pitch Zoom call, and you still didn't call yourself a vendor. You said they will give me a test project. So you're still not feeling like I'm a vendor, because you know that it's in the process. And once that is done, then you're like, I'm now an official vendor.
A little trick that I like to tell people, a lot of people think, hey, if they do this project with me, I'm a vendor. A lot of times when they do these projects with you, they will try to pay you with a credit card or purchase card, or P card, some of the terms that they use. That is not, you're not a vendor, even if they purchase from you using a purchase card or credit card. Think about a credit card, right? It's just a transaction. It's just a swipe of a card or entering the number. You're not an official vendor. Once they issue a purchase order, then you become in their system, because to issue a purchase order, they have to do some onboarding paperwork with you, and either a contract or some kind of documentation to say we're going to do business with you. So when they issue a purchase order, now you're officially in their system as a preferred vendor or a vendor in general. So I like to tell people, my recommendation to people in general is, when they try to issue that first card, or the first contract, or first purchase order, not purchase order, but first transaction with you, ask them if they could issue a purchase order. And they're not going to want to, because it takes time on their part as well. But I would say, hey, David, I know this is probably time consuming, but is it possible to issue a purchase order for this? I could wait the terms, the 60 days, the 90 days, the 45 days to get paid. I think it's better if we just do a purchase order. And some people that are really privy or know what they're talking, know what they're doing, will do that for you, because they know that you want that purchase order, because they know you want to get in the door as a vendor. For others, they just want to get it done, and they would say, "Let me swipe my credit card," and then you're still not a vendor. Yes, you got this project out of them, but you're not a vendor. So
A very interesting approach. It's just it's in the details, right? Like you're like, yeah, I got the project. Yes, you did get the project, but not through a purchase order. It's more like David at the company did it, and then David can say whatever he wants, as opposed to everyone to see, okay, we do have a vendor that does this, and it does require a little bit more paperwork, and no one likes to do the paperwork.
yeah, because the credit card transaction goes on a credit card statement,
Mhm.
so no one is going to know about that. But once they issue a purchase order, now you just have, now it's almost like your first job on your resume.
Yeah.
Now you have a past performance on your resume internally at that company, and so now anybody in that organization is looking for a similar service. Now they could see that they've done a project with you for that same service. Now they could hire you as well. So that helps you expand your relationship internally at that company as well.
Right. And it feels like, as we're going through this, I'm just looking through all this whole conversation that we're having, patience throughout the whole process. You said, I will wait 60 days if I have to, but put through a purchase order, as opposed to instant gratification, which may not help me on the long run. So you're always approaching networking and business relationships with a lot of patience.
Yeah, I mean, if you need the money as a small business, you need to survive first. So take the credit card. But ideally, if you could survive without the credit card and wait that 60 days or 30 days, do it. And then once you get in the door, you can negotiate better payment terms, you know. So
Right. I feel like a lot of people get into it with the wrong ideas. They feel like this entrepreneurial stuff is going to be very fast. Within 1 year, I'm going to hit this number, then double, double, double as the year continues. As opposed to if you're patient, that work you put in eventually just kind of explodes.
yeah,
It's not like that. It's
yeah,
more
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I've been there too. Like it was a growing process for me as well. But like, oh man, why we're not doing so great? Why we're not doing as good at that as that company over there? Like they're having a lot of success, and again, it took time, and then like looking back now, like man, these past 5 years, like it's been great, and it's getting better, and now companies are reaching out to us, and we're not even reaching out to them. They're reaching out to us now, like, hey, we got a referral that XYZ, you guys could do global. Last year alone, we got invited to like 4 or 5 different RFPs because of our global footprint. Like they were like, hey, we were doing an international project. We heard that you guys do this. Would you guys want to participate? And we were like, hey, yeah, that's what we do. Let's do it. So
That's very good. That's kind of the process I want people to be more clear on. The pay, even I was the victim to that. I thought I'll just kind of double every year. Next year I'm gonna do this thing, and then you're like, man, clients really did not like what I had in my mind, and you have to change and you have to pivot to really kind of going through that feedback loop information so that you're always patient with all these things. Now, you've dealt with global, you've dealt with corporate, you've dealt with federal and small businesses when dealing with the different sizes of companies and with different private and public sector and government sector, what would you say what would you say is the most valuable for each of those uh, personas that you're talking with? So if a small business is like, I want to talk to, and they start saying the same thing to everyone, probably will not work. What would a global company value the most? What would a government project value the most? What would a small business working with a marketing agency value the most, and vice versa?
I'll touch on all three. I think the number one thing people want to do, I mean, these companies or organizations want from a small business is that one, they want to know if you could do the job, and if you say you could do something, you have to deliver on it, right? So I always say, under promise, over deliver. Don't over promise and under deliver, because that is gonna haunt you forever. So deliver as you promised, you said you would. The number one thing is that if they're gonna put their name on the dotted line and sign a contract with you or do any project with you, you are a reflection of them. So if they are a reflection of their choices too, because they trusted you and made a choice to give you a shot, deliver on it. Now, if you something that you cannot do, it's better. People will respect you more if you say you can't do it up front versus, and like, don't make the mistake I did. Like, we could do it all, and just perform as you promise and perform within your capacity. In terms of like what the value that each of these different verticals or personas say, I would say that I think they are all in the same boat. I think they want to make sure that you deliver the project and you meet the needs of their organization and you propel their organization forward, not backwards, right? So, like for instance, if you are a packaging company and you say you could deliver these packages in a certain amount of time, or the actual packaging, if you mess up, you might be holding up the entire supply chain because that they need those boxes or those packaging to package their goods, to ship their goods, and to make money. So if you screw up, then you're screwing up their whole thing, and that again, that's going to hurt you. So I think the number one thing for everybody is that you're going to deliver as promised and within the scope of the budget. But I think the experience might be slightly different. So like when COVID happened, what kept us afloat was we grew in the pandemic, both commercial and government. But I think what really stabilized us was our government contract. The government is always going to be paying money, regardless of what's going on in the world. They're still going to be the biggest buyers, right? In the pandemic, a lot of corporations slowed down on spending. the reason why we grew with the pandemic is because everybody was working from home, and our company ships globally, and so we were shipping products to the homes of the employees because no one was going into the offices. So we were shipping to the homes of the residents. I would ship products to your house. So that made us grow in the pandemic. When it comes to small businesses, I think the thing that we learned going back to those back in the days is that I was a small business, so I understand it. But do I want to go back to it? No. Small businesses typically don't have the budgets, and the amount of time that we would spend trying to win a project with a small business is the same amount of time that we could spend to pursue a government contract or a corporation, and the purse size or the check size is much larger. So instead of going after a $500 project, it's the same amount of time that I would spend to go after a $500,000 project or a $50,000 project or $100,000 project. So that for me, the learning lesson there is, I started small, but then I eventually evolved and started pursuing larger opportunities. And that I would recommend that for anybody. If you start off with one persona or one sector of small businesses, try to go after medium-sized businesses after 2 or 3 years, then try to go after large companies after that. But always trying to elevate the number of transactions you have and the size of those companies that you go after as well.
Fantastic, Keel. There's a lot of stuff you did share with us, and it's all raw. It's all very to the point, and I personally learned a lot of stuff. If someone wants to get a hold of you to work with you or to explore BizLea, how do they do that?
Just go to www.bizlea.com. That's Bizlia.com. The website is new, fairly new. It's only been like 2 months since we launched the website, but still work in progress. But the platform itself, we're constantly innovating with the platform. So you could check us out at www.bizlea.com. Join our newsletter on the website. We are also launching in the next couple months. We're going to be launching our browser extension, which will make it super easy for people to register their business as a vendor with different companies. So one of the functions of the browser extension is that if you're browsing Coca-Cola's website, it will tell you if you're registered with them or not, and you can add it to your queue. My team will take care of the rest and register you with Coca-Cola. Then we'll find the key contacts for you. We're also coming out with their mobile app. So if you're at a conference and they tell you to register on their portal, you could scan their business card, scan their QR code, and it adds it to your queue. And my team take care of the rest. And so yeah, so those are the ways you could get in touch with me.
Fantastic, Keel. Thank you so much for this. Keep networking, keep building what you're doing. I think it's fantastic, and I think a lot of people will need what you do because those relationships, they takes patience, but once they start, bringing bringing back everything you put into it, it's amazing. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Really appreciate it.